Hey, we have a bunch of attendees. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm Zerino from Engage Liverpool. Amazing. I can already see we've got a bunch of our speakers from Leeds arriving, which is fantastic. So for those of you who are arriving, this is a Zoom webinar, so nobody can see or hear you. The only people who can be seen and heard are the speakers and the panelists who you'll be seeing in a minute. Hello, everybody. There's also a raise hand button on your screen somewhere. You're welcome to mash the raise hand button and we'll be able to see you. So yeah, if you can hear me, do your raise hand and I'll be able to see you. Hey, look at these people. Hello, Ian. Hello, Elizabeth. Hello, Emma, Cindy, Christina, Ange. Amazing. Welcome. Hello, Mike. And there's also a chat as well. You can open the chat panel and you're able to send messages to everybody and also just to the panelists. So if you want to leave a message as to where you're from today, where you're joining us from, I expect we'll have a lot of Scousers and a lot of, I don't know what the word is for somebody from Leeds, but we'll definitely have some people from Leeds here. Hey, Joe Dunn from Tubruk. The Leeds Massive is in the house. And an Aussie that lives in Leeds, I love it. Amazing. So part of the team that we've got here is, as well as me, for those of you who've joined late, I'm Zerino from Engage Liverpool. We've also got Gerry who'll be doing the hosting. And as part of the back of house team, we've also got Andrew and Mark who will be helping answer any questions and pass them on to the speakers. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in that sidebar and we'll make sure they're seen. Awesome, thank you very much, Ian. Leeds, apparently Mike has got the answer. Leeds folk are called loiners? Is this a joke? No, it's true. Oh, okay, it's definitely true. All right, that's the first thing I've learnt on this call. To be fair, if somebody told me that people from Liverpool were called Scousers and I didn't already know that, I would think that was a joke too. So I think we'll give people a few minutes because all you lovely people are all early, which is amazing. But we'll give people about 5 minutes to turn up. So anybody who's arrived in the last few minutes, I'm Zerino Zapier from Engage Liverpool. And I'll be sort of facilitating in the background of this call. And then I'll be handing over, as you can see, to Gerry and Ed, who are our hosts tonight. Hello to everybody who's joining. Hello. So those of you who are new, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, you're welcome to raise your hands if you can see me. So nobody can see or hear you because this is a Zoom webinar, but there's a button on your screen so you can raise your hand. There you go. Look at these lovely people raising their hands. Hello, Adrian. Oh, Ronnie, God, there's too many names. I can't name them all quick enough. And there's also a chat as well. So if you've got any questions for the panel, me, Andrew and Mark will be trying to direct those towards Gerry and the panel as well. So hopefully we can get some discussion going in the second half of this. Good evening, Adrian. I feel like some sort of YouTube Twitch streamer or something saying hi to all these people. It's very weird. It's worth mentioning, we're also streaming this on Facebook as well, on the Engage Liverpool page. And we're recording it, so hopefully it will go up on our YouTube channel in the next few days. Cool, a couple more people still coming in. Hello to anybody who's just joined. We're just waiting for some more people to arrive. I'm Zarino from Engage Liverpool. If you're new and you haven't done it yet, because it's very exciting, feel free to press the raise hand button and show me you're here. And you can also post in the chat to say hi to everybody and tell us where you're from. Hello, Gordon. And Sophie. So if folks can see a Mike Chitty in the chat, he's one of the organisers too. So when he says he's delighted to see this happening, he's one of the people who's responsible for making it happen. So so be nice to him.
And Emma.
And Emma as well. Emma
Berman.
There you are. Hello, Emma. Awesome. Thank you very much, Emma. I think we'll give it another half a minute until about 5 past, and then we'll get cracking. All right, cool. So you've probably all heard the intro, but just in case you haven't, my name's Zarino Zapier. I'm one of the trustees at Engage Liverpool. Hello, everybody. All these people saying hi. Tonight, we've got an amazing set of speakers who we've managed to pull together. Obviously, at the moment, everything's a bit crazy and everybody's really busy. So we're so pleased to have these people who've given their time to talk to us. And also for us just to have a conversation. We haven't planned a whole like exposition here. It's just the beginning of an interrogation, a debate around the ideas of delight and the city. We're going to start off with a short introduction from Gerry, who's the chair of Engage Liverpool and who is going to be sort of hosting the majority of this call. And then he's going to pass on to our 4 amazing speakers to give their thoughts, and then we're going to open it up to more of a group discussion. And the aim is we'll be done by about 8 o'clock is the idea. So is there anything else you think I should have mentioned there, Gerry? No? Do you want to take over then, Gerry?
Okay, thank you very much, Zarina, and welcome to everyone who's joining us tonight. I'm Gerry Proctor, Chair of Engage Liverpool, and welcome to the Delightful City Seminar, where tonight we're launching a trans-Pennine conversation between Liverpool and Leeds. Work began on linking our two cities in 1770, with construction of the canal starting simultaneously at both ends. It was only completed in 1816, when each city named a street after the other where the canal terminated. My family lived in Headingley in Leeds during the 1970s, so I know what a wonderful place it is. We've invited 4 women panelists to share their experiences of the COVID-19 lockdown, what they felt, what they learned, what they don't want to lose as we emerge, and what they'd like to see change in our city. But we'll just pause for a moment to remember the more than 60,000 victims of the coronavirus in our country, their families, those still recovering, and those in hospital. We also remember the victims of police brutality in the USA and the UK, and all who want to see real change as part of the Black Lives Matter movement. I'd like now to introduce our first panelist, Erika Rushton. Erika is a creative economist and artist who worked in the social housing sector, where social inclusion, economic growth, and place-based regeneration became her passion. At Baltic Creative CIC, she promoted creative, digital, and cultural entrepreneurs. And that work led to the Beautiful Ideas Company, which invests in innovation and enterprise. She is just incredible. Erika.
Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me, and thanks to everybody for coming along. I don't think I can think of 3 more amazing women to be on a panel with. They've all inspired me in their different ways, so nice to see you all. I'm going to talk about 3 things. I'm going to try and stick to 5 minutes, that's my brief. And I suppose after the global crash, there was a bit of an opportunity, but it didn't last very long. And I was lucky enough after that global crash to be involved in Baltic Creative, which was 10 years old last year, and also in Granby 4 Street. And they're probably 2 of the most amazing projects I've been involved in, but neither would have happened in the way they did had we not grabbed that opportunity post the crash. And I suppose when everything's kind of trundling along as normal, people resist change. People don't want to do radical things because it's kind of all right for kind of the most of us, even though sometimes it's pretty horrendous. So I suppose I've thought about, well, what are the 3 things I'd like to grab in the wake of this crash before people move to putting back what was there before? What are the opportunities for me and the people I care about? And I suppose what the pandemic pause, as the economy has paused, has made me do is notice some things that were probably there already, but I hadn't given an awful lot of attention to. So I'm going to talk about the economy, I'm going to talk about care, and I'm going to talk about reparation, and focus on those 3 things. So first, the economy. I do call myself a creative economist. It took me 30 years to have the courage to do that. But I think we thought we had a resilient economy. We thought we had a stable economy here in the UK. But as somebody said to me the other day, it proved not to even have 3 months resilience within it. We did not have a stable economy. Actually, we had a pretty risky economy. And what folded, what failed? Well, actually, that economy failed to protect us. It failed to provide PPE. It failed to even hang on to the care workers, some of whom were sent back to wherever they'd come from because they were working on the front line. Bright House folded. I gave a little silent cheer to myself on that one. The high-rise buildings in the city centre that were seen as our towers of economic regeneration have proven to be not even big enough to step out your front door and applaud the NHS on a Thursday night without getting too close to your neighbour, and the vent systems kindly pump the virus round, making it far more dangerous than if you're out in the open air, which you can't because there's no green space. So these things that have been symbols of a successful economy suddenly were not symbols of success. And I suppose what I noticed was who stepped into the void, who stepped into the spaces that fed us, that cared for us, that provided protective equipment, that began to deliver things across the city. Where did people gather and talk? Where did people teach each other skateboard? Where did people walk? Where did people talk? Where did people care? And Andrew Beattie, who's on this call, coined a phrase. He wants to credit it to me, but it wasn't my phrase. But it was, what if the next big thing is not a big thing at all? What if it's 1,000 small things? And so I think my first delight has been that it is the smallest units of the economy that have proved the most resilient. And I suppose what would delight me about a city post-COVID is a city where we recognise that this is a city built on casual labour and entrepreneurialism, not on big employers with big ideas and big budgets and big planes to fly in, but a city of small units of economy that are interdependent and therefore very resilient. And I would like to see the investment go that way. That's my timing telling me I should stop somehow, but I can't switch it off. The next thing I noticed was who cares. And studies across the world have shown that actually you get a better return from care than you do from construction. And so in terms of sort of our going forward, I would like to see our city leaders going to recruit care workers abroad, not to MIPIN. I would like to see wages put into care staff on the same levels as you would get social workers paid. I would like to see career paths for care workers through to nursing and doctoring, so that actually people could see a future for themselves there. And I would like to see a recovery plan written by women, because it is women throughout the world, women leaders, who've shown that they can make a grand job of this. So don't exclude us from that table. And finally, I suppose the other big thing that has happened is the global unity that has been shown around what happened to George Floyd in America. And we cannot ignore the physicality of our city, that it is a city built on slavery. And I suppose I'm not so interested in the statues and what happens to those, or even the buildings. I think I am interested in reparation. And I think Lloyds and Greens in London have taken a brave step and said they will pay back the money that they've had for 200 years that they received in compensation for slavery. And I think if some of the institutions and firms that have built their wealth in this city actually put that money back into a reparation fund that meant that every young black person in this city got an educational bursary, and every black person that had their house or property or business taken from them by previous economic or housing policies, then actually we might look to a future that was truly inclusive for our city. That's me.
Thanks very much, Erika. That's really good. A great start. Plenty of things for us to think about. We're going to move on to our second speaker, which is Jo Harrop. Jo worked in regeneration, project management, and education, connecting stakeholders and communities, which led her to establish Placed Education in 2011. It's a social enterprise, and as director, Jo works to engage communities and in particular young people in the built environment. The work she does, and she herself, is simply amazing. Jo, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Gerry. It's amazing to be on this panel. I feel very honoured because the other people on this panel are just really, really inspiring. So yeah, I feel quite nervous. So if I'm a bit shaky, forgive me. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about my experience really of the sort of the last 12 weeks, which I think for like so many people has seen the sense of what your home is completely transformed. So I think especially on 2 young children, we've gone from our home being somewhere that we run in and out in our busy lives on a mission from school and work to an after school club, and quickly trying to get the dinner down the kids as quickly as possible, to somewhere that we're suddenly spending 90% of our time. I mean, the constant rush that's our normal life isn't actually that good, and it's really good to have this opportunity to reflect on that. Running your own business and having 2 kids in primary school, it means often we don't have time to just sit down and eat, to read, to paint, to try and help the kids with the increasingly complicated primary curriculum that I think is like my GCSE. And actually, suddenly our home's gone from being somewhere that we spend a few hours to, at the very most, to somewhere that's actually at school. It's our office, it's a workshop, it's a workspace, it's the cafe, it's the sports club. It's become everything, really. It's having to function in all of those different roles. And, you know, we have a garden, we have a space that kids can go out in. And that's brilliant. We have this new hub. But also reflecting, I think, really on the fact that having 2 young kids, actually we've almost been playing with the idea of this 15-minute city or 15-minute neighbourhood, where we're getting everything that we need for our daily needs and our life really within a 15-minute distance, because it's so dictated to by how far 2 young children can get. And that in itself has been an absolute joy. Suddenly, we can actually cycle and the kids can go on the road without a 4x4 beeping or being up their rear and having to be super protective of their space and worrying about whether they're safe. And walking and being a pedestrian and noticing that actually, you know, people acknowledging each other, respecting each other's concerns, acknowledging that actually we're all in a strange experience together. And I've just noticed Ronnie is saying it goes, and it does, and it's going so quickly. And that transformation from somewhere that we felt entirely safe and able to get out really regularly and every day with the kids on the road is so quickly starting to go. And that's something we definitely don't want to lose. But within that 15-minute city, we're just so fortunate where we live that actually, you know, the fact that we can access amazing parks, and even when the media is playing to us all crowding in and having our barbecues, actually when you go to them, there's quite a lot of space, and we're so fortunate to be able to go and connect with the nature, which is thriving in the current situation. And the kids can play, and we can have a sense of calm and a sense of well-being. And even though it's really quiet on the high street, actually there's small businesses, small independents that have to keep going, that have to innovate, that have to do things differently, where you can still get your coffee, you can still drink and support them. And that's fantastic. But I'm really, really conscious that we're in a very privileged position, that we have a 15-minute city that works. But for so many people, they don't. For so many who are living in overcrowded homes, who don't have that respite of school or the grandparents, for those who are scared of leaving their home for their daily exercise, but are scared of being in there at the same time, for all the space that's been lost, because actually the economy is more important than people, and our green spaces have been built on, and actually there's nowhere for people to get that moment of peace away from that, and that isn't right. And so for me, actually, what I'd like is for everyone to have a 15-minute city, a 15-minute neighbourhood, that we're not living in our bubbles, we're not living in silos where we never cross over, but actually that we can get our basic needs, that we can get what we need where we live. And I believe the only way we can do that is by actually speaking to communities and seeing what is missing for them, and working together to make sure that we can all find delight in our own 15-minute neighbourhoods. That's it. Is that 55 minutes?
That was great. Thank you so much, Jo. That was lovely. We're going to move on now to our third panelist this evening, which is Michelle Charters. Michelle is an activist for over 40 years, with an unrivaled reputation in her community and across the city for empowering people and being a major champion for equality and diversity. She is the CEO of Kumba Imani Millennium Centre, where she started the LA to Better Place team, continuing her work of community development. Prepare to be inspired. Michelle.
Thank you, Gerry. And thank you to everybody who's taken the time out of their Saturday to come and listen to us. I am Michelle Charters, and I am the CEO of Kumba Imani Millennium Centre, which is the living legacy of the work of the Liverpool Black Sisters. I have been working for 40 years in terms of working to address the racism and discrimination that we as a Black community face in many, many different ways. And that journey's been long, that journey's been full of learning, and that journey's had some mistakes, but I think I'm at a place now where I'm able to share my experiences and skills and pass them on and share them with other people who've got that same drive and same commitment. And I do that very much through LA to Better Place, which is a community development team who actually go into the community of LA and have been working with local people who want to become community activists. When COVID hit first, that first pandemic in our life more recently, I had our LA to Better Place team went out there, and we've seen an even bigger demand, not just from activists, but from others. So they created a WhatsApp group, a WhatsApp support group called LA to Organizations that was made up of local people, local organizations, but we also invited the politicians because we said we want them to know exactly what's happening on a day-to-day in a community that is facing, you know, like a double whammy around the COVID, the fact that they are twice as likely to die of coronavirus. But the way in which those people came together was amazing, and that's something that we hope will continue after COVID, after the lifting of the lockdown. Our second pandemic was the reality of the pandemic that hasn't gone away from us, and that is racism and discrimination. And the fact that on the 25th of May, that had a major impact on not only us as Black people, but the world. You know, we felt the pain, we felt the anger. I actually couldn't speak for the first time in 40 years. And for people who know me, they'll be like, oh my God, she didn't speak. But when I did, I wanted to make sure it was measured. I wanted to make sure that I'd thought about what I wanted to do going forward. But I was really, really impressed that, like me, two local people in our community, Kerry and Buster, had said, right, that's it, we're going to march. They didn't know how many people were going to turn up. But from those two people came 7,000. From those two people came 7,000 who then walked peacefully and with respect from the Liverpool area down to the city centre. And the main thing out of that I felt was that it was Blacks and Whites coming together saying enough is enough. What I believe is that it actually increased that call to action, that this was not good, that we needed to learn to understand each other and each other's journeys in order to move forward. So we've done that, and I think that there's going to be lots coming out of lots of little initiatives, whether it's from two people as amazing as Kerry and Buster, who can galvanise 7,000 people, or whether it's organisations, or whether it's other individuals, and more importantly, all of the communities coming together to address what needs to be done going forward. The new approach, I think, for me, is really important because it's a new approach to an old issue, and it's a new approach to what can potentially be a better situation for everybody. And I think for me, as an individual who's not techno savvy, one of the things that I have done is get into this Zoom world and through meetings and stuff. And I'd say there's yays to that and there's nays to that. But it's great to see people when you've been on your own and you've just been in your house isolated. So that has been a plus. It's the bad part of that is that you can't get out of any meetings that you're getting asked to go into, which is a bit of a nightmare when you're really busy. It's really good that it's offered training opportunities, not just to people who can afford to pay it, but what I have been watching is the training providers who are actually offering free training. It's offered the promotion of people's skills and businesses. And like Erika said, you know, watching the small local businesses thrive whilst the big ones are fallen. It's also allowed me, as the chief exec, one of the things I wanted to do was capture what we were feeling. And I was able to do that through the Power Hour series, whereby a local young lady, Janice Easthope, who's a TV producer, just from a conversation said, Michelle, come on, let's do something, and we did, because we wanted to hear people's own voices. But I'd say I'm going to finish off with the best thing about what we've been through is that for the first time, I really truly believe that we are getting to the point where we are going to listen to each other, we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to act for change with each other. I think that the good thing about seeing what we've all been through for the last 12 weeks is that we're all supporting each other in many different ways, and that needs to be respected. I think that we're seeing the support of local businesses, and personally and professionally, I've made a stance that when I do go out of this lockdown, I am going to seriously look at where I put my money and my organisation's money. So those employees who did not pay their staff well or didn't pay them at all, they will not get our pounds. I think that we need to commit and make sure that we have that commitment to tackle the racism and the discrimination, and that we need to have the honest dialogue. We need to stop worrying about what people feel. I'd rather you ask me, even if you feel awkward, believe me, I'm more awkward that you're not asking me. I think that we need to look at the people's power for choices through the local economy in terms of supporting our local businesses, whether they're small or big. But if they're big and they've got a social value, let's support them. And I think that we need to start really supporting the black economy. Where I want to spend my black pound in all of the economies that are good for all of the people. I'd say the best thing of the city, the best thing coming out of this is to take some of those city responses and let's start moving them on to other cities and partner up as we have today. You know, I'm really pleased. I've been to Leeds a couple of times for your carnival, amazing. But one of the things that I am really pleased is that we're both speaking to each other and we're both going to be listening, and hopefully we'll see some partnerships going across the Pennines. So thank you for your time, and that's me.
Thanks, Michelle. That was fabulous. Really, really good. We're coming to our final panelist tonight. It's Clare Devaney. Clare is a researcher, strategist, and communicator, a writer and political commentator, and also founder of Citizen Eye Limited, delivering citizen-led research, innovation, and impact. She has focused on the role of cultural heritage in promoting civic innovation to develop a new and holistic economic paradigm. Currently working with local neighbours in the Love Wavertree project. She is a legend. Clare.
Thanks, Gerry. Wow, from one legend to another. I just want to repeat what some of the other panelists have said, that this panel is squad goals. So thanks so much for the invite to take part. I think, as you might expect from a pandemic, you know, COVID and the lockdown has been seismic for those of us who have been advocating for a new economic model and for the end of GDP. We've actually seen that playing out in front of us. And I would say that I really struggled with the title of this session tonight in finding delight, right? Because at a macro level, there's been so much to depress me and make me despondent and despair. I have dared to dream as well. But as Erika was saying, you know, the small things really have brought delight to me. And what I would say on a very micro level, like in my house, which, as I think Joe was saying, you know, the home has become our economy now, is that I've suddenly found that I've got green fingers, right? After years of killing plants regularly. Suddenly it's like living in Day of the Triffids here. Arguably it's like living in Day of the Triffids at a macro level as well, but certainly in this house it's full of plants, it's full of flowers. Even the supermarket basil has got flowers on, right? I have actually realised saying that the the plant that is in shot is actually plastic from from IKEA, but all my other plants are real, I promise. So in terms of what I would like to see and what's delighted me, what I would like to see for Liverpool is that it flourishes as well, so that we get a blooming and a blossoming and an opening up as we recover. And by opening up, I mean opening up our streets, opening up our public spaces, our built environment, and our governance structures as well. So we've relied for a long time on the same economic model, and it feels like it's not fit for purpose anymore. It's been exposed as not being fit for purpose. And I think that if our governance structures and our boards aren't opened up and don't reflect the diversity and the talent of our city, then we should be asking very big questions of them, and we should be asking very big questions of ourselves as well. So I would like to see our governance structures really open up to new voices and to new ideas. I would say that we have very strong communities that can lead our recovery. We heard from Michelle then about our powerful community in L8, and my community here in L15, which is Wavertree. We have a community campaign called Love Wavertree, which was brought together about a year ago, but it seems about 10 years ago from what we've achieved. And that was brought together because there was some very negative media stories about Wavertree and about the demise of our high street, which was not unique to Wavertree. High streets across the country have suffered. But one of our community, several of our community took a leadership role in bringing the whole community together for a series of conversations. And within 6 months, we'd held a car-free day celebration on Wavertree High Street, which had like 5,000 people attending. There was, music and dancing and everything else. And it was marvellous. And that was all community led. And I think something else that we've done as well that's been really effective in bringing the community together is litter picking. You will be amazed how much kind of a community spirit that generates, just picking up litter off the floor. So if you haven't read the Grimsby report that came out this morning, I would say go and find it and read it. It's great. It certainly delighted me this morning. It calls for community right to buy, transparency of property ownership, local food, easy CPO, all sorts of amazing things that could take communities to the next step of where we need to go next. And I would say for Love Wavertree, we've definitely been supported by the council, by our local councillors, by the mayor, and we wouldn't have been able to do it without them. But having said that, we need to rethink the notion of what an authority is, and local authority, and to rethink what our communities are as well, as we kind of recalibrate that relationship going forward. I think that a lot of the time communities are approached as communities of need, when actually they're communities of resource and knowledge and ideas and power. And I would say as well, there's on where I was thinking about delight, there is a kind of subversive element to delight as well, right? I know it's not that kind of show, but there's earthly delights and carnal delights and all sorts of things. We're not after 9 o'clock, so I won't go there. But Wavertree is not Little House on the Prairie either, right? So our regeneration is not about sanitising our character. Quite the opposite. We've got a little bit of edge and we want to bring it out. I would say as well that what else has opened up is the streets, as I think Joe was saying, kids are out on their bikes, we're out on our bikes. It's been brilliant to see. I think that John Alexander, who was involved in this, putting this call together, talks about subject consumers and citizens. And I think because of our lack of leadership from the state, the subject is kind of gone, all the shops have shut, so the consumer's kind of gone. So we're seeing this real push for citizenship, and people are feeling agency, which is agency in our streets, as in they just feel able to just, if you drive, it's great as a pedestrian and great as a cyclist, but if you're driving, it feels like everyone's forgotten how to cross the road at the moment, right? So, but we are seeing this push for citizenship, and what I really loved recently was the Marcus Rashford intervention into the free school meals. I think that in itself, he was encouraging people to write to their MPs, right? So that is, he was encouraging people to be better citizens. But I think the response to that added a fourth level to what John is saying in John's framework, in that it was a human response, right? I think people were horrified that we were suggesting that we weren't going to feed our children. And so what I would like to see going forward is that we continue that human connection, human compassion and understanding, and that we do that in Liverpool with an open governance and collective leadership, and that all of our diverse and talented and powerful communities are right at the heart of that and leading the change.
Wow. Thanks so much, Claire. That was wonderful. Thanks to all our women panelists tonight. I'm going to welcome and invite Ed Carlisle, who will be hosting us next week in Leeds. And we wanted him to be part of this event tonight as a connector for what's going to come in a week's time. Ed, would you like to, I think we can put all of us, it'd be great if we could put all of us on the one screen. First reaction, Ed, to what you've heard tonight from Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be here, and it's great to hear everything that you've got to say, and great to see the resonance between, inevitably, what you're saying and just the resonance with what I think people are seeing in Leeds and presumably across the world. I suppose just some really quick initial thoughts, and this drawing also on some of the stuff that people have put in chat. Thank you for all who have contributed within the chat. I suppose, yeah, really interested by the role of disruption to unveil and open up and to start to shift imagination. And I think imagination is a really key thing, is, how we imagine economics, how we imagine or perhaps reimagine politics, how we reimagine communities and so on. I think imagination, that's real baseline work for how we start to reset society. I'm interested in the way in which, and again, plenty of people are talking about it, this is one disruption, but we've got more disruptions coming, the recession, economic, big economic disruption, but also climate change, and so there will be more unveilings and more opportunities there. I was really interested in what Joe, I was interested in what Erika said, but something Joe said in particular about the way that actually we've all got more time. And I think there's a really interesting challenge as to how we make sure that we don't just get back to the rush and the treadmill, and actually continue to have time to be imaginative and to be innovative, but also time to listen and collaborate, drawing on what Michelle was saying, because otherwise we will just get back to working in our silos again. And I suppose just one other thing, I think is really think about reimagining politics and some of the comments within the thread, wanting to move beyond the idea of the local authority as the local authority, but to quote Mike Chitty from many years ago, could local governments start to imagine themselves as local facilitators? And indeed, like we all know it to be true, anybody who's doing good work in a community, really, they're above all else, they want to be facilitating others and empowering others. So I mean, there's loads to say, and that's just a few initial thoughts about the weave that I saw.
Great, thanks very much, Ed. It was good to hear that. I think now that we're moving into a kind of a discussion period with all our panelists together, it'd be good if each one unmutes herself so that we can have more of a discussion. And I think what's really important is that one of the that strikes me straight away is knowing the city of Liverpool, as those of us who are from here do, it's a tale of two cities. I think we've heard from the South End, and the North End can be quite different. There aren't as many parks nearby. The 15-minute city, which came from the mayor of Paris, who of course is a woman, she's extraordinary. And I love that idea, Joe, of the 15-minute city and working on that. Erika's done quite a bit of work in the north end of the city. I wonder if you'd like to just share something, Erika, about from that experience of the north end and what might delight people in the north end.
Well, two things I probably want to share, that just off the top of my head. One is that actually it was in the north end of the city that district nurses were invented. Women on bikes, travelling around a district, looking after people. And that was a long time ago, but just now it doesn't seem like such a bad idea. And so I think as we're looking for sort of social innovation advances, it's always worth looking back a little bit and reminding a place of how innovative it has been, because it gives us confidence to be innovative again. Similarly, where I was very involved in Baltic Creative in the south end of the city, and then started to get involved in some of the spaces in the north and the North Docks and what might happen there. And people were starting to move in and take over spaces, but the physicality of those buildings and spaces and who was already there was really different to Baltic Creative. It wasn't the kind of creative and digitals, it was the makers and the muckiness and the engineers, and people were making things and borrowing the welding machine off the guy who was doing up the taxis next door. The buildings were built for a different scale of things. And then the sort of city strategy, Michelle's point about listening, but listening carefully. The city strategist said, oh, it's going to be the next Baltic Creative. And actually it wasn't. It was something quite other that was much more related to the inherent skills and the DNA of that area. So I think we do need to focus on, you know, we've ended up with monochrome cities that look like every other city, and our strategies all look the same. And actually there is value in our difference and diversity, and allowing different bits of the city to be different, different bits of the region to be different, and different bits of the country to be different. And that doesn't mean we can't have relationships. Actually, it means we collaborate more and compete less.
Oh, yeah, that's great. One of the questions coming in here from Ian Harvey is, do the panel think local authorities are prepared to become facilitators and give up some of their power? Speaking about Liverpool, we can't speak for Leeds, that might come next week, but what do people think? Who'd like to tackle that one? Will that ever happen, do you think? Erika, you've spoken. Let's just find one of the others. Michelle, you've done a lot of work with the local authority, and Claire has as well.
Yeah, I think that there's been progress in Liverpool in terms of we've got more representation in the local authority. So for us, we've got 6 councillors from 1, and we've got a black MP now. So we do feel as a community we've got a different kind of relationship. Not saying that the relationship has been bad with the local authority or all of the local authority, but I think going forward, even the local authority, especially on the issue of race, recognise that they have to work or want to work, I should say, because Joe Anderson did put his hand up and commit to wanting to work and acknowledge that it has to be community-led. So this is where we're going to see a real partnership approach between authority and communities, especially in terms of something as important and complex as race. So I would say watch this space.
Great, thanks.
I can come in as well, Gerry, if you want, just to say that I worked in Manchester for many years as well, and Manchester tells everyone that they do things differently, right? But actually, as Erika was saying then about these identikit cities, we kind of all do things the same. And I did get into trouble by suggesting that Liverpool was following a Manchester model, following a London model. But what I meant by that was this reliance on hyper development and property developers. And somebody mentioned MIPIM before, you know, which is where they go and talk about property over champagne and Cannes, because that's necessary to do. You can only talk about property on a yacht. But I think that these new structures that are coming in, I mentioned the bid and the LEP, and, you know, all of these boards need to work very quickly on their diversity and to have community representation on there. But I saw in the chat before somebody talking about how authorities don't understand how to support small businesses and entrepreneurs. Put them in authority, right? Let's have our small entrepreneurs on the boards first of all. I know that there's a bid sub board been launched, not a bid, a LEP sub board that has got Peel on again, you know, and consultants working for Peel. So we know where the power is there. I think in Manchester, you know, Howard and Richard were in power for 20 years. I think if you're in power anywhere for 20 years, then you become part of the problem, right? Because you know, boards that I've served on, you're kicked out after 3. So I think, you know, there needs to be a letting go of power, and that this is the time to do it.
And Claire, I think one thing that strikes me is that during this lockdown period, as you've all said, a lot has happened. It's been a major moment in our culture, in our history. A lot of time to think. A lot of the questions coming in the comments in the chat section have pointed out how important nature's become, the significance of cycling and families. Jo talked all about the human dimension within her family. Erika was also very keen that we should start looking at that, bringing care into regeneration. I mean, some really powerful stuff. Do you think, as a panel, that this is going to happen? We're dreaming a little bit, but we're just reflecting on what we've actually seen and wanted it. Will it happen? What would the city look like in 5 years' time if you had your way? What steps do we need to take to make this city different in 5 years, to make it more delightful?
I'll start with that one. I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to show respect, and we need to listen and learn from each other. You know, there's long established communities here, there's long established institutions here, and I think that it's about people valuing the benefit of what individuals bring to the table. You know, in terms of myself personally, I am fortunate that I sit on a public sector institution, National Museums Liverpool, as a trustee, and I'm really excited about what NML have got planned for the future and how I've been a part of that. But you've got to look that I've actually been a part of NML and its journey for 26 years. I'm not new to this, you know, so I'm glad that it's recognised, I'm glad that I can participate, but it is my obligation and it's my personal commitment that I will bring others along with me. I am not going to sit at tables for 20 years and take the place and be the gatekeeper. I think that we need to pass the baton to the young people and to all groups that haven't had any involvement whatsoever at the next level. So there's a bit of learning to do, but there's got to be a lot of intention and then really great results, because we can see it already in our city to some extent.
Erika, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I suppose I think that the problem with you started off talking about the political structures, and the problem with those is it's a pursuit of power and money without always purpose. And I suppose there is an opportunity to be led by action, the things people have done, you know, because this last period has required action. I got a phone call from someone at one of the councils that I work with saying, right, we want to put in a big bid to government. So we want it to be really, really big. And have you got any ideas of what we can do with the money? And I have to be honest, I kind of think if we don't know what we want to do with the money, why on earth are we asking for any? There's no point to it. Whereas I think there are, you know, small and large that have demonstrated themselves through this pandemic. And I learned years ago about something called force field analysis, which is that you focus your resources and your attention on the things you want to see more of. So I would like to see our political leaders focusing their resources and their intention on those things we have some consensus we want to see more of, rather than just attacking the things we don't. In terms of imagining the future, I think it was Ed who made a really good point about that, you know, that what does that look like? We've got this strap line of build back better, but I'm finding it really hard to engage people in the what does better look like conversation. You know, we can't just build back better if we don't know what it looks like. There's a Yogi Bear quote that says, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. So let's know where we want to go, and then our investment will take us in that direction. Even if we never get there, at least we're on the right path. And a bit like Claire, I do a bit of work over in Manchester, and Salford, where I work, has a city motto, and I love it. Is people is the highest law. And so everything in Salford is first judged on whether it is good for the people of Salford, not whether it is good for a developer or an investor or a profit margin or whatever. And I do think we could take something from that here in Liverpool and think, okay, what are the values upon which we are electing our politicians, and what are the values on which they are making their decisions?
Thanks, Erika. Joe, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going back to the politics as well of whether local authorities are ready to hand over power and ownership. And I think it's what's worth remembering, I suppose, is we've only been in this situation for a few months. And for a local authority, I've worked for them in the past, and housing associations, they are such big machines that their ability to shift and to respond, I mean, it takes them a long time, and that's, there's so many mechanisms in place. And, as Erika's talked about, the smaller organisations are the ones who can respond, who don't need to say, actually, there's funding available, what should we do? Because they know, because for the last however long they've been speaking to communities, so they know what they're responding to, and they know the issues, and they understand. And I think, we work with the city region here, and they are, I suppose, as a newer, big, massive organisation, they're definitely showing signs of wanting to listen and wanting ownership and wanting, a lot of different groups and people and voices to be heard. They're saying the right words, but it's, they're long-standing local authorities who are a lot more political and playing the game. It is a hard thing. So I suppose from my point of view, it's just increasing the power of the smaller organisations, the social enterprises, the people who can go, actually, we've got a problem and we can innovate and respond and pivot, like was in the Kindred event, people saying that pivoting and being responsive and changing and going, actually, I was going to do this in 3 years, but I need to do that now, and I don't need to go through 150 different procedures to ask permission. I'm just going to do it because it's the right thing for our community, our city right now. So I think for me, that's what I'd like to see, is that shift, really, because it's the only way, isn't it? It's the only way for our communities to survive and flourish.
Thanks, Joe. I'm very conscious that if we're not careful, we can finish this reflection tonight talking about them, as in them that we want to do the change, politicians and others. But I think Michelle had a conversation with us when we were preparing the series, talking about the importance of empowering ordinary people to stop thinking the solution will come from outside us, but the solution will start with us, with ordinary people, grassroots level. Michelle, do you want to just say a word about that side of the change that we need to see? Has got to be with every single one of us. It can't be they have to change. We have to change, don't we, as well? Or we'll see nothing delightful in any short time.
I don't think it's about changing. I think it's more about understanding, people living in their houses who know that their streets have issues. They know they've got issues. They know there's something wrong there. They might not know how to fix it. We do. And so that's where the likes of community organisations, that's where the councillors, that's where the MPs, that's where the institutions, it's their responsibility to actually, start to look at the people who live in their city and what they've got to offer. Because a lot of the fixes are actually in the communities, because they live there day in and day out. What we need to do is something that I have tried to do with LA to Better Place, is share opportunities, promote good practice, and hopefully partner up people so they have a better understanding. If you come from that premise, it's an organic growing city. Let's go for the organic growing that looks, because there are people in the Black community who've got a major interest in the climate change, and then there's others that have got a major interest in business and want to get kickstart into there. So what I do is I bring everybody, like the women's organisation, like Erika and the One Dayers, and pull them together to actually get that message out to the people that I'm working with day in, day out.
Thank you. That's a model we can all use. I think what I'd like to do, I'm just very conscious of time, we're going to wrap up at 8 o'clock, as we said. I'm going to ask each of the 4 panelists to describe the perfect day in your delightful city. 1 minute, just to say what would the perfect day look like in your delightful city? It could be Liverpool when it's delightful. What would it look like? Joe, do you want to start? No pressure.
It would be local, I think. It would be walking down the street and being able to get that coffee and sit there and do a bit of work, bump into old friends in the local who you know and who suddenly you come up with new ideas and new conversations. You know, getting the kids and actually having that ride or that walk on safe streets and seeing people. To me, it's just about that sense of belonging where you are from. And I think as a Scouser, that's massively important. Belonging and community and being part of something, really.
Okay, cool. Claire?
Yeah, am I on? Yeah. So I was just thinking about culture and that we haven't really mentioned culture yet, and a lot of our approach to culture previously has been about big and best, and you know we had the giants here, so that's a really big statement of what that was about, and I think that in my perfect city it will be about rethinking that culture and having culture makers and creatives and artists and people invested in to express themselves culturally and creatively. I saw something before by an awesome man who works in this field, actually, Stephen Pritchard, and I think it was him that retweeted about Leeds is facing some draconian cuts to their libraries and galleries and museum spaces. And I think that in terms of whether we're waiting for them to give over power, I don't think that they in some ways will have a choice at some point, and so you know bringing that culture out onto the streets will be part of my perfect city.
Okay, thank you very much. Erika?
Okay, so I think my perfect day would start with a walk in the park. I'd bump into Michelle, who would say what she said 5 minutes ago: don't forget the fixers are here. And then I'd wander down to Baltic and I'd meet with Greens for Good, who were looking at expanding their door-to-door delivery green service. And then I'd pop down the North End, where Homegrown Collective would be just producing their next batch of beer. And then on my way back up the South End, I'd call in the Somali group who've delivered care to elderly people throughout this pandemic, and they'd be opening their very first care home that they've aspired to do but never had the confidence to say. And then I'd have my tea with the family before joining North End Sketch Club online and just have a little relaxation with something that has provided support and care to people who've been really isolated over the last 3 months by encouraging them to sketch.
That's
my perfect day.
I'm only sorry I'm not part of your perfect day there, Erika. But that was
next time.
Michelle, last word.
Mine is that my perfect day is the day when there's recognition of all people, when there's respect to all people, when we can embrace differences in order to make our delightful city, because that will be the day that it's really a delightful city. And that will be the day that I wake up and believe that I've been part of something that's ever changing or everlasting. So that's my delightful day.
Great, what a lovely word to end on. I'd like to say thank you to all our speakers tonight, to our partners Wordscape and Playful Anywhere in Leeds, to those working behind the scenes to make all this possible, Zarina, Andrew and Mark. And please do take a moment to fill in our feedback form before you leave us complete. They should come up on the screen. And we hope to see you all again next week in Leeds. And I'm going to let Ed have the final word.
Wow, what responsibility! Yeah, it's been a delightful evening, and it's been really, really good. And yeah, please, obviously, do join us all next week, and bring others in if you can. And I guess it's exciting to think about this as just the start of something, and next week we'll continue that. But then things can snowball. So in the same way that I think there's been a lot of great local collaboration at this time that's been sparked, I hope something can really snowball around this across our cities. We might even invite some other big northern cities that we shan't name to collaborate with us as well, and great things can happen. So thank you all.
And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.